Quest to Succeed. Chapter 29. One of his colleagues invited him to his Christmas party. Jay considered the invitation carefully and discussed it with Rena, who declined to go to the party. She said that the children were young. There was no one to look after them. She would not leave them on their own at night. Jay also thought that the party would end after midnight. There was no convenience for traveling. He did not want to travel by public transport after midnight and would not trust a private taxi. He therefore decided not to go to the party. He turned down the invitation and resolved to celebrate Christmas at home with the family. A couple of years later, another of his school colleagues invited him for a Diwali party, which was to take place at night. Jay evaded to go. It became his habit not to go to parties at night. It happened again when two of his colleagues, who were also his close friends, approached him to celebrate the publication of their book. This celebration party was to take place at night. Jay was frank and told them that he does not attend night parties. There would be traveling problems, especially in returning home at night. His colleagues understood the situation and thanked for his openness and decision. Notwithstanding, whenever there was a gathering during the day, Jay attended it. He did not consider the distance or inconvenience as a hindrance. He went to West London, South London, South East London, South West London, Essex or Surrey, wherever his friends lived, and invited him. If any of his colleagues was sick, he used to visit them. He would take flowers, food, and a bottle of wine. He enjoyed their company. His friends and colleagues respected him for that. They enjoyed his presence and company. Wise people have often argued that one should not put all the eggs in one basket. In social behavioral terms, it could be suggested that one should not depend on any one person, one system, or one institution. He should consider and investigate the pros and cons of all aspects and weigh their advantages and disadvantages or alternatives before taking a decision or accepting the counsel. A person's information or views could be subjective and may contain the advisor's self-interest. It could be contrary to the well-being of the person who was seeking the guidance or taking a decision. The public-level decisions were taken for the benefit of the majority of people, if not for the betterment of everyone. Private individuals should be careful in considering a verdict and look at their own circumstances and situations. Jay took certain resolutions which were contrary to his nature and benefit. These accords were, however, taken by others and imposed on him. He was an innocent soul. He was easily persuaded to take quick adjudication, which proved detrimental. He realized that these people did not have his welfare in their minds and attempted to control him for their own interests. He changed his course of action and even broke connections with such individuals. They were unable to understand him and his ways. They lacked experience in certain fields. Jay was determined not to hearken or follow them without weighing and scrutinizing the subject, and never to lose the plot. He sensed that trust was vital in social relations. He watched those people who could damage his interests. After living in Britain for more than 5 years, Jay and his family decided to visit their families and friends in India. In New Delhi, they visited markets, shopping centers, historical places, and newly developed residential areas. One day, Jay's brother Nakul asked to accompany him to his office, where he saw Naresh's ex-colleagues. They inquired about their old friend. They wanted to know about his nature and conduct in London. Jay did not believe in criticizing anyone in their absence. He told them that Naresh was fine. Then they asked Jay, when did he see him last? Jay replied that he saw him recently. One gentleman insisted on the time, month, and the year. He told him that he met Naresh for the last time more than 4 years ago. Naresh's ex-colleague laughed and said that he, Jay, was a real diplomat. He did not reveal that Naresh was not his type. They could not become friends. They both had different approach towards life and society. Jay had a comparative mind. He started to compare the British and the Indian systems. He perceived that the Western education system had been planted into non-Western countries. The European languages had been introduced there. The economic and political institutions had been designed on Western patterns. Even religious beliefs had been accepted as superseding their own. In other words, the world has moved towards unity with the leadership of the West. He discussed his ideas with his friends in London and briefly expressed his views in a letter to his cousin Nitin, who asked Jay what was he doing those days. He wrote to Nitin that copying the West has not been a successful attempt because of geographical and historical reasons. It has led to differences and deviations and sometimes conflict. It was difficult to change the mindset of men and women. Jay advanced the view that after the collapse of the Indian political power in the form of the Mughal Empire and the Maharajas, the British took over the administrative reins in India. Thereafter, Western influence started to penetrate in the Indian society and polity. Obviously, the host community resented, but with the loss of political power, India was in a weaker position. Indian reformists attempted to eradicate the frailties and looked to the ways to revitalize the nation. Most Western people thought that India was a deeply religious country. Yoga Guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi visited the United States and the United Kingdom. He had many followers in these countries. On occasions there were chanting of Hare Rama, Hare Krishna on the streets of London. Some famous British singers became his followers and helped him in setting up ashram settlements in India, and a Krishna temple was constructed near Watford in England. Jay, however, believed that religion should be confined to the values of spiritualism and rituals in a person's life. The ritual should not be treated as real. Everyday needs should be fulfilled by technology and by developing social, economic, and political institutions. He had been teaching in London for a few years by now. His cousin Nitin asked him how he would compare the teaching at a London school with the teaching in schools in India, where he had taught in two places, in Delhi and Somanpur. Jay replied to Nitin, "In London school, there was very little teaching in the way. He was trained, or he had practiced in India. In his school in London, the children were of mixed ability, some of whom were determined to study, while the others felt that they were being forced into the school system. They were not only anti-academic, but also noisy and disruptive." At times, he was dismayed and disappointed at the classroom atmosphere and considered that the concept of education was miles away from the practice. The school was like a child-minding place. The education system was child-centered. The child had to take the initiative and had to undertake his classwork as well as homework. Every child was afforded individual attention, encouragement, and sometimes punishment. There was, however, little scope for talking sensibly in a classroom atmosphere where the teacher could explain the theme. The children could, nevertheless, copy anything from the board and answer questions from textbooks. The whole resolve of schooling was not to produce intellectuals, but to provide education as a social service and to educate children for citizenship, where they could play their part in social and economic life of the country. Sometimes he was amazed to see that a child who stayed at school for about 11 years, yet she entered her adult life as an uneducated person. Some children could not read or write. It was not because of any language problem, but because they had either escaped the attention of the teacher in class or were not encouraged to learn the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, at an early stage. Jay continued that a host of subjects were taught at a comprehensive school. The main aim of the comprehensive education was to provide a choice. The entire system was geared to achieve uniformity and equality of opportunity. Some young people, nevertheless, knew that as manual workers, they could earn more money than the educated folk. There was, therefore, little incentive to acquire formal qualifications. Jay noticed some prejudice and discrimination towards students by some teachers. He advised students not to worry too much, but to maintain their cool and work hard to improve their educational standards. There was always a silver lining in every cloud. He also thought about happiness. How could people be happy and maintain a good life? A job satisfaction, fulfillment of necessities, healthy environment at home, a good social atmosphere, and even changes in behavior in accordance with the circumstances could make them happy. He apprehended that one should be happy with what he has rather than be unhappy for what he does not have. Individuals and groups should seek happiness by spending time with their family and friends. It advanced sociability and heightened satisfaction in life. One should undertake a hobby which could provide pleasure and avoid negative deliberation. Jay believed that the society was an organic whole. Every person was important and had a role to play. Any parochial cause should not degrade humans. In India, happiness and enjoyment materialize at the time of weddings of children, grandchildren, and the ceremonies which come with these functions. Jay always loved the lavishness of Indian weddings, decoration, music, gatherings, and of course the food of all varieties. There was no other country in the world which had such a vast variety of food. In the summer, Jay went to see the English countryside. The villages were small, with about 10 to 15 houses. Most of the population was elderly, retired people. There was a shop with post office in it. The retired men and women collected their pension at the post office on Thursdays. They bought their food supplies and other essentials there. The village environment was relaxed. The residents saw the city people with curiosity. At the school, Jay's teaching room was on the 5th floor in a multi-story building. Students used to come to attend lessons in his room. After each lesson, another class would come. Jay used this room not only for his teaching commitment, but also as his office. He prepared his teaching material there, saw his personal tutor group, and marked the students' scripts. However, he used to go for tea break in the staff room on the ground floor. Teachers used to line up for their cup of tea and snack and pay for it. Jay liked hot tea, but the tea lady used to pour tea in cups in advance to save time. She would, however, make hot tea for him because once he refused to have the already made tea which was quite cold,